Hello, everybody. I'm David Schuster. The Kamala Harris campaign has quickly turned a remarkable ad from the vice presidential debate. It involves the moment when Minnesota Governor Tim Walz pressed J.D. Vance about January the 6th. Vance refused to acknowledge that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, and Vance made a remarkable statement about the transition of power.
It's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power.
He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future.
That is a damning non-answer. America, I think you've got a really clear choice of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
That ad is important for a couple of reasons. First of all, the content. All of the polling data indicates that January the 6th has a tendency to move moderates and independent voters against Donald Trump. Every time there's a reminder that Donald Trump tried to block Joe Biden's certification, that there were rioters that stormed the Capitol, that cuts against Donald Trump with people who are not paying much attention to politics. So by highlighting the exchange over January 6th, gives Democrats another chance to show the images, and having J.D. Vance reinforce this idea from Donald Trump that he refuses to acknowledge the election loss, that's a problem for J.D. Vance and for Donald Trump. And secondly, the numbers. Keep in mind that between 150 and 160 million people are expected to vote in this U.S. presidential election. The total number of people that may have watched the vice presidential debate, and let's just suppose you go back to the 2008 vice presidential debate, one of the most watched on record, 70 million. So let's just say 70 million or 80 million actually watched J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. In other words, most people who are voting this election are going to hear about the debate, not because they watched it themselves, but because they see news accounts or reports or clips from the debate. And the Harris ad has a way of essentially influencing the media, because the media is going to talk even more now about the January 6th moment of the debate because Harris is spending money on the ad. But also getting the ad out there is a way of essentially framing what the debate was about. And the Harris campaign has already seen huge success with this ad. It's already gone viral, millions of views on social media. So they are essentially able to frame the debate on their terms, showing that J.D. Vance is an election denier. Now, if you look at the instant polling of the debate, most polls have found that J.D. Vance won the debate, or maybe it was a draw, it was close. And so, okay, J.D. Vance was smoother. He came across as a better debater. But on the issues, the polling also shows that Tim Walz won. And every time the Democrats can reinforce issues like January 6th, that is a victory for Democrats. And oh, by the way, if you want to give some credit to J.D. Vance, literally the only thing he has done in his Senate career is debate. J.D. Vance has not chaired any committees. He has not chaired any hearings. He has not passed a single piece of legislation. There's not a single bill or law that has made it through the U.S. Senate that J.D. Vance has sponsored. He has no experience getting things done. So, yeah, it's great that J.D. Vance is a good debater and a strong debater, but that shouldn't be such a big surprise. And unfortunately, in this day and age when we focus on who is a better debater, who is smoother, who talked about the issues better, there's a big focus on that and not on actual experience. And so, yes, J.D. Vance has experience doing well on a debate stage, but if you look at actual government experience, he and Donald Trump together have 6 years total of government experience. That's it. And yet there's not much discussion about experience. There's a focus about, well, how do they do in the debate? Now, there's another issue that has cropped up on this day, and that is usually after a debate, there are surrogates from both campaigns that will go to the airwaves and will take questions and try to defend their campaign. There was a fascinating moment on CNN when Corey Lewandowski, who is a surrogate for Donald Trump, was asked about a recent speech when Donald Trump seemed to confuse the leader of North Korea and the leader of Iran. Watch this and the exchange with CNN's Jim Acosta.
We had planned an outdoor rally, and it would have been amazing. And Washington would not get us. They said that we have to guard the United Nations, which meant the president of North Korea, who's basically trying to kill me. So they want to guard him, but they don't want to guard me.
Yeah, Corey, what is the former president talking about there? Why is he getting confused about that? Well, I think the president was he meant to say the president of Iran, which is trying to kill him. We know there are credible threats against this president. We know that for sure. It has been widely publicized. And we know that until recently, this administration refused to give him the Secret Service protection that he should have been entitled to. And that's why there have been 2 attempted assassinations on his life. So, look, we need to do a better job as a government.
The Secret Service thwarted the second one. They thwarted
Jimmy
the
took
second
a bullet in the ear. He took a bullet in the ear because the U.S. Secret Service wasn't communicating with the people on the ground. Don't you think that is an epic failure? And when additional resources were asked for, but Jim, additional resources were asked for from the campaign, and they were denied by this administration.
The question was, why is Donald Trump confusing the leader of North Korea with the leader of Iran? I mean, that suggests some cognitive decline. Lewandowski was able to pivot and move the conversation briefly away to issues of Secret Service protection and the assassination attempts. And it would have been nice if Jim Acosta had circled back and said, okay, but what about the cognitive decline? What's going on here? Instead, though, the conversation quickly went off the rails even more when Lewandowski seemed to deliberately mispronounce Kamala Harris's first name. Watch.
Goes to show you the politics of the top of the administration, whether it's Mayorkas or it's Kamala or it's Joe Biden. Donald Trump should have had additional resources.
What is this Kamala? It's Kamala Harris. Corey, you've been in this business a long time. I think you're a mature grown-up. It's Kamala Harris. Can you just say, can you say Kamala, or you cannot say Kamala?
Jim, can you admit 13,099 murders that have come into the country? You say you haven't.
Well, Corey, I appreciate you coming on. Maybe we'll have you back. Thanks for your time.
Maybe we will have you back. That is a not-so-subtle F-U by Jim Acosta to Cord Lewandowski. It's basically saying, you don't add any value to this conversation. We're not going to possibly have you on again. Lewandowski may not go back after this exchange, but in any case, good of Jim Acosta to call him out, and also the Trump campaign to essentially call them out for deliberately mispronouncing Kamala Harris's name. Because what the Trump campaign is doing here is racist. It's making Kamala Harris seem like she's un-American, that she's mysterious, that she's some sort of foreigner who cannot be trusted. And that is racism. Now, there was once a time when Donald Trump's juvenile taunts and his nicknames had a sort of a humorous edge, and they were not so overtly awful. I mean, you could say lying Ted Cruz or little Marco Rubio or low energy Jeb or even crooked Hillary. But now it seems like Donald Trump has lost a few steps, that he's lost some energy on his fastball. It's not funny anymore, and Donald Trump simply comes across as tired. And that's the focus of a new ad by the Lincoln Project. Watch.
Remember him? We thought he was different. We had fun at his rallies. It was exciting. What happened? Now he can't make up his mind about big issues, moral issues like abortion.
Well, I think the 6 week is too short. I am going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks.
The next day, he flip-flopped.
So I'll be voting no.
For years, he said he really won the 2020 election.
Frankly, we did win this election.
Then he finally admitted he lied.
Lost by a whisker.
On Bitcoin.
Do you have a dabble in Bitcoin?
I don't. I think the others are potentially a disaster waiting to happen.
Then Bitcoin tycoons contributed to his campaign.
The United States will be the crypto capital of the planet, and we'll get it done.
You know what happened to our guy? That guy we liked? After running for office for a decade, he became just another politician. It's sad.
Pretty compelling ad by the Lincoln Project, and this one is important because it gets to one of Donald Trump's key building blocks at least 9 years ago when he started his effort in politics. Donald Trump, remember, back in 2016, said he was going to drain the swamp. He took advantage of people's sort of lack of faith, lack of trust in institutions, that Congress wasn't able to get anything done, that our government had been bought and paid for by wealthy interests. So Donald Trump comes along and says, oh, I'm already wealthy, I don't need to benefit from this, so I'm going to drain the swamp. And he's still trying to appeal to people who want to blow up the institutions of government. The problem, though, is that Donald Trump now has a record of not having done that he's essentially increased government spending. He hasn't followed through on some of the promises he made in 2016. And so for the Lincoln Project, they're able to sort of go at one of Donald Trump's great appeals, at least 4 years ago and 8 years ago, that he was an outsider. Now, in part because of showing the money going across under the table, the allegations of corruption, the allegations that Donald Trump perhaps stole classified documents, maybe he wanted to steal them. The Lincoln Project is able to cut into this image of Donald Trump being the ultimate political outsider and portray him as, well, he's just another crooked politician. And that also has a way of cutting with independent and moderate voters who, again, may still feel like they don't have confidence in government institutions, but now they don't have confidence that Donald Trump is the outsider who can change things in a dramatic way that actually benefits people's lives. Be curious to see your comments in the comment section. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us.